This is Holy Joe Rock and Roll with In the News from HJRR TV. In the news today, Ferguson, Missouri, riots continue as a result of a supposedly unarmed black youth being gunned down by a white police officer. But what is the story behind the story? This is In the News with Holy Joe Rock and Roll and the story behind the story of Ferguson, Missouri. What is more believable as the facts come out? It becomes clear that the story behind the story is the rush to judgment. That's right, just like in the famous Trayvon Martin shooting by George Zimmerman, there was a rush to judgment by not only the media, but also the race hustlers like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, just to name a few, who came out calling this an assassination of unarmed black men and all that stuff by white people, when in fact Trayvon Martin's killer, George Zimmerman, is quarter black. How about that? Anyhow, the story behind the story is that people, I'm talking about white Americans, even black Americans, are becoming more and more suspicious and distrustful of anything that the media comes out with, especially when it comes to supposedly white on black killings. When we all know the problem is black on black killings in most cases. So it's very difficult for me to believe really anything that the media is saying. And furthermore, when people riot and destroy things in their own community, even if they're not from that community, but think about that. What are you doing? You're not helping yourselves. You're not helping your people, your community. You're just destroying things. And it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of effort for anyone. And a lot of times they're immigrants who don't know anything, who set up stores, convenience stores, and that kind of stuff in certain neighborhoods which are considered unsafe for the average person, white or black. So you're just making it more difficult for yourself and your families. And I don't know why you would do that. The news, the story behind the story is also, anybody who talks about poverty being the source of crime obviously has never left the United States. If you go to almost any country in the world outside the US where there is devastating poverty, these people are not criminals. I've seen some of the most honest, integral people who were extremely poor. They had no money at all, and they were completely honest. So poverty is not the root cause. It's other societal factors, which may include out-of-wedlock births. It may include fatherless families. It may include, greed, stuff like that, keeping up with the Joneses. These types of things are probably bigger causes of crime than pure poverty. Because you can be poor and you can be happy. Maybe not happy, but you can be comfortable and accepting of that, hoping that you'll get out of poverty, but not being a criminal. Being poor does not mean you're a criminal. Does not even mean that. Let's get back to the incident. Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown, an 18-year-old kid, 6'4", 300 something pounds. That's a big dude. What is more believable, that he was really gunned down, assassination style, or that he attacked this police officer who was fighting for his life? By the way, this police officer who did the shooting, was identified as doing the shooting, is a 7-year veteran of the Ferguson, Missouri Police Department, and he has an unblemished record. Now, think about that. If you've been a cop in a majority African American community for 7 years, and you've not had one negative complaint, you have to believe this is a good man. This is a pretty, as much as we may hate the cops, come on, this has got to be a pretty decent human being who's been doing his job probably in an honorable fashion, a fair fashion, maybe even bent over backwards to do his job, to be fair to everybody, to go 7 years, to have an unblemished record, and to be actually, he was awarded some kind of, service medal for outstanding service, that kind of stuff. Now, the question that people have asked is whether or not this police officer knew that Michael Brown had been involved in a strong-arm robbery minutes before his encounter with the police, and the video was released of Michael Brown in a convenience store where he was stealing cigars and basically pushing a sales clerk out of the way to leave the store. Two things I would ask. Number one, if I just stole cigars, I would not be walking in the middle of the street where I might be stopped by a police officer, asked to get out of the street. That's just stupid. Okay, now I understand he was 18 years old. He might have been under the influence. Who knows? The second thing is, again, people are wondering whether the cop knew. It doesn't really matter if I knew that someone stole something. More than likely, because we know there was a 911 report, a 911 call, more than likely, once that call comes in, dispatch will announce that over the radio, that a 211 in progress or 211 just occurred on a corner of XYZ Street. This market was robbed. Suspect description, right? African American male, 6 feet 4 inches, approximately 300 pounds. Wearing a red T-shirt or whatever they would say, wearing a white T-shirt and a black baseball cap. This information would be over the radio, and if this police officer was in the vicinity, of course he's going to perk up. Hey, I heard this call. Now, whether again, that really doesn't matter if he knew about it or not. The fact that information is coming out that Michael Brown was not shot surrendering. He was shot charging the police officer. Now, there's been at least, one medical examiner report that came out that showed that there's pretty much no way that Michael Brown was surrendering with his hands up, because if he was, he would have been shot in this part of his hand and not this part of his hand, right? How can you be shot here if you're surrendering? I mean, that's kind of weird. Your hands usually are not like this. It's like this. So, there's a lot of questions. The main thing is the rush to judgment. Again, this is America. We are innocent until proven guilty, and anybody who lives in America, black or white, knows that. And the fact that these people are coming out with such anger and such, rush to judgment, talking about giving the death penalty to the cop before even the facts are out, it's insane. Now, it's tragic that anybody has to be killed, but I believe this is more of a suicide by cop than anything else. The fact that if you're unarmed and you're charging a police officer, and supposedly there's reports out that he prevented the police officer from getting out of the car. There was a struggle with the gun. He tried to grab the police officer's gun. It went off. Then Michael Brown may have ran away. The cop finally got out of the car, ordered him to stop. Mike Brown didn't just stop. He turned around and charged the police officer. So, and there is independent information about this. It's not been corroborated yet, but there is another side of the story, and suicide by cop may be the real answer here. So I'm so tired of this rush to judgment, and I'm so tired of people of any color using, the excuse of violence against my people as a reason to riot, steal, loot, and cause damage and havoc anywhere else. The second really important factor, the news behind the news, is the police reaction and the militarization of the police. As you can see, what has happened, all of this surplus military equipment coming out of Afghanistan and Iraq has been made available to police officers, to police departments around the country, which means that the United States is becoming more and more militarized. The police are becoming more and more militarized. I don't believe that's a good idea. There's no reason for, there's no reason for it, because, come on, the USA is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. Of course, if you provoke people and that becomes more and more like that, well, that's another issue. And that's another story. I'm going to rock and roll. This has been In the News and Behind the News, the story behind the news from HJRR TV. Until next time, be safe. Peace out.